It seems like every day there's another AI coding agent coming out. Only issue is, none of them actually work. So, how are AI startups getting millions of dollars? Well, the truth is, it's just a massive scam. And here's why. As we know, AI has been going through the roof recently, and with that, so have the numbers of AI startups. It seems as if every other day, an Ivy League grad seems to be raising more money than most people make in their entire lifetime. The YC badge has never been so popular on Twitter, and the Gen AI hype train has birthed startups that are closer to the Nelk boys than they are normal tech startups. Despite the recent surge, it must be noted that most of this did not actually start in 2022, like most of you probably think. The truth is that it's been slowly ramping up since the early 2010s. So to understand the symptoms we're getting now, we firstly need to understand the cause. Back in 2014, one of the first major AI era startup scams was already unfolding, and is one you probably know. Mark Zuckerberg's female lookalike, Elizabeth Holmes, founder and CEO of Theranos, claimed her company's device could run full blood tests just from a finger prick, and do all this just from the comfort of the user's home. Despite looking like Zuckerberg, Holmes wasn't nearly as skilled, and her technology worked about as well as the UK's economy. She lied to investors about the machine's AI capabilities, inflating the company to $10 billion. In the aftermath, Theranos was shut down, and Elizabeth and her COO were jailed for a combined 20 years, with the entire ordeal resembling a car crash in slow motion. You might be wondering, is this the only example from the 2010s? And to that I would say, no, this is just the beginning, unfortunately. In 2016, Builders AI managed to raise $500 million in investment from parties such as Microsoft and QIA, which quickly gained them a $1.5 billion valuation. The concept was very similar to modern-day vibe code apps like Livable and Base44. However, this was before LLMs, so putting the long story short, it turned out that the AI in their name did not actually stand for artificial intelligence, but instead stood for, actually, Indians, since the company hired 700 Indian employees to code the apps that the users requested. Yeah. After this, investors pulled their money, and the US authorities subpoenaed the CFO of the company, which means that the company is not only cooked, but their top execs might be put in the slammer anytime now. Now, I think these are two pretty good semi-recent examples for AI startups that turned out to be giant scams. Now, you might be saying, sure, these are bad, but they were before Gen AI, so they don't really count. We do most of this stuff now for real. To that I would say, do you also think Google doesn't sell your data? Let me give you a super recent example that might help me convince you. In April of 2024, Humane launched their $669 AI pin. Something that was perhaps more funny than their pricing was the fact they raised $240 million, and only a year later, the company shut down, bricking all the devices. So if you spent your hard-earned money on this device, well yeah, you're out of luck, and to be honest, you probably lack brain cells for buying it in the first place, in my opinion, but that's besides the point. Anyway, so what I have showed you so far is a history of how AI startups have been scamming investors and consumers for years. Now we're in Gen AI, where AI seems to be just about everywhere. So the key question is it still happening? After all, if a company had a $10 billion valuation, surely this means it's possibly happening at basically any company. And the answer to all these questions is kind of nuanced, so let me just paint it out for you. Right now, there seems to be more AI companies than Elon Musk has ex-wives. These companies span a huge area. There are the startup labs, for example. Take SSI, founded by Ilya Sutskever. Yep, one of the original OpenAI guys. It's already valued at $32 billion, despite having released 0 public products. Then there's a Thinking Machines Lab, started by former OpenAI CTO Mira Murati, sitting at a $12 billion valuation. Again, no product, no revenue, and it seems like no idea. Both of these have promised world-changing products, however, this does not seem to be the case. Now, I'm no investor, but if someone's everyone's pitching godlike intelligence with no prototype, that might be wait, that's exactly what Theranos and Humane did. Then, on the other side, you've got the consumer AI wave, or as I like to call them, the GPT wrappers. These are apps that basically rent OpenAI's brain, change the UI, and then raise a seed round. Two of the biggest companies that spring to mind are Perplexity and Lovable. Perplexity basically being ChatGPT with a search bar, and Lovable being an AI app maker that doesn't actually work properly half the time. Now, you might be wondering why I've just brung up a bunch of different Gen AI companies. Well, the reason is that there's a distinct pattern here. Founder makes a lofty goal, raises a ton of money, then fails to deliver, and everyone loses money. Right now, we are here. In just 2024, AI has raised $150 billion. So the question on everyone's mind, this time, will they deliver? And in my opinion, they won't. And let me show you how the scam actually works. How do founders keep getting away with this selling a pipe dream, raising a ton of capital, and much like people on Tinder, being completely different than what they were on paper? Well, to explain this, we need to use a past example and then compare them to the modern examples. For this case study, we're going to be using Theranos. Now, we spoke about Theranos earlier, and it was clearly a fraud, which was built upon blatant lies. The company I'm going to compare this against is slightly different. Since AI is blowing up right now, you don't have a lie as such, you just have a promise. And that's exactly what Ilya is doing. Meaning what he is doing won't get him in any legal trouble and is technically not doing anything legally wrong. However, I do think he's doing something morally wrong. So just so that's clear, let me jump into the analysis, because the similarities will make you cringe more than when you first saw Sam Altman in a Sora video. Elizabeth Holmes was a student who dropped out of Stanford after just 1 year. She lied and claimed that she had a background in medicine, and went on to claim her company, Theranos, had found a way to do amazing stuff for your health. However, the only thing the machine actually did in the end was stab you with a needle and give you a sore finger, because the machine could not actually output anything useful. The part I want to focus on is the raising money part, because that is the core in every single one of these so-called revolutions. When Elizabeth pitched to a rich middle-aged white dude, she pitched hope, and maybe she made them feel a little special. Every VC that gave her cash thought they were investing in medicine, but what they were actually buying was the narrative. And the narrative is super addictive. It's clean, it's moral, and most importantly, it does not require your brain cells. This is the psychology that drives all tech bubbles. Hope bias. What investors want you to believe is that some genius founder will bend reality. They look at the past romantically. People like Steve Jobs, for example, releasing the iPhone. People forget how bad the iPhone actually was, and what made the iPhone good was not the first generation, it was the second, third, and fourth, all small steps forward and not just one large step. It's emotional and not rational. And this is what leads to what is happening with SSI. Let's zoom into it, and I'll explain exactly how it works. In September of 2024, they raised $1 billion at a $5 billion valuation. This was peak in the AI hype season, and Ilya was fresh out of OpenAI, so he had a ton of aura. On their website, it reads, "Our business model means safety, security, and progress are all insulated from short-term commercial pressure, which basically means we can delay you as long as we want without returning anything to our investors. Safe, super intelligent is deliberately vague. In reality, this is what actually happens. OpenAI blew up in late 2022, and during this time, there was a huge AI frenzy, as I'm sure you all remember. Now, something you might not recall was the point in time when AI safety was a huge concern, since people were not so used to these huge, insane transformer models just being out in the wild. And even the top scientists didn't really know why or how the models worked so well. They were kind of a black box at the time. At this point in time, Ilya was working as head of AI within OpenAI. Now, with the commercial success of ChatGPT, OpenAI started getting huge commercial pressure to release more and more models. Now, the dude who was in charge of leading the creation of these models did not like the sound of this, and he wanted something he thought was safer. So, using all the hype OpenAI had built startup, and using the current leverage and history around AI safety, Ilya managed to use all this to found and sell SSI. He managed to raise multiple funding rounds, one of which made the company worth $5 billion, and the second one which shot the company up to a valuation of $32 billion. However, over the last year, nothing has happened product-wise. The only noise we have got is that the CEO got snapped by Meta, and that Ilya keeps posting mysterious messages to keep up the hype, and probably the investments. With him saying things like, "You might have heard rumors of companies looking to acquire us. We're flattered, but we are focused on seeing our work through." What work? If the work is groundbreaking, why are you not sharing it? Now, I have to be careful. I cannot just accuse Ilya of doing anything illegal, but with all things considered, with him riding the AI hype with zero product or progress updates, and with people leaving the team, it seems as if things are at the very best not doing so well, or at the very worst, going completely wrong behind the scenes. But at the end of the day, this isn't Ilya's fault. What do you expect from a guy who has never run a company before? Now, you might be wondering, well, sure, most AI companies might be scammy, or at the most, grossly overvalued. But what's the big deal? This happens all the time, right? All this will do is just harm the investors dumb enough to invest in them. Well, I wish you were right, but you're not. AI scams or overvaluations don't just torch valuations and hurt investors, they ripple through savings, jobs, infrastructure, security, and trust, leaving households and institutions to absorb years of costly cleanup, while a slower and stricter tech cycle takes hold. This is similar to what happened after the dot-com bubble popped. Back in the 2000s, the economy crashed and slowly recovered as the internet did what it said it would, just way slower than people originally thought. So with all this, I think in the next couple of years, we're going to be looking at Gen AI as one of the biggest scams told to the Western people. Sure, AI is going to be super important to people, and it does have a ton of good use cases. However, currently, the juice is not worth the squeeze for what people are investing in these companies. That's just a fact. Hopefully, in the long term, we can get some of the things we dream of, and I'm optimistic about that. I'm of a balanced approach. I'm nor an AI doomer, nor an AI hype lord. I just simply understand that AI is trending towards being one of the most important technologies ever, but I also know the timescale can vary a lot, and no one person can absolutely promise super intelligence, or AGI for that matter. And if you can't guarantee it, you probably shouldn't be raising billions of dollars off the back of promising you can do it.